Alhamdulillah wa salatu wa salam ala rasulillahi amma ba'd. Welcome to another episode of Hadith Disciple Book Review. The book that we have with us today, alhamdulillah, is a very excellent book, a very beneficial book entitled Usul al-Hadith. It says the methodology of Hadith evaluation. Usul al-Hadith, the methodology of Hadith evaluation. The author is Dr. Abu Amina Bilal Phillips. The overall general view that we have on the book is that it's highly informative, and alhamdulillah was put together well, and it's very beneficial for the everyday reader, the one who aspires to learn more about hadith science without necessarily reading the original Arabic books because they can't, or lack of time, or even if you do know Arabic and you continue to read books in English, well, alhamdulillah, there's nothing wrong with that. In contrast to what many people believe, they say, when I learn Arabic, I don't read English no more. I don't touch English. I can't read English. I don't know about that. Khayr, inshallah. The book is printed by the International Islamic Publishing House. The date of the book's publication is, the English edition is 2003. Year 2003. So the book is about approximately 12 years old. It's 246 pages. The author, he starts off with the list of contents, which we'll read. As we said before, whenever you buy a book, you should read the table of contents and the introduction. Every single book that you have in your house, you should at least know or have come across those two parts of the book. The author, he says, list of contents, symbols used in the book, transliteration chart, forward, section 1, definitions, section 2, compilation, section 3, transmission, section 4, classification, section 5, conflict, section 6, criticism, section 7, grading, section 8, literature, section 9, biographies, section 10, women scholars, section 11, appendix 1, section 12, appendix 2, section 13, bibliography. We'll read the forward briefly. The author, he says, this text was compiled as a part of a Deen-intensive series of courses delivered at the Islamic Information Center, Discover Islam in Dubai, May 2001. It represents the 5th level of series that began in the summer of 2000. Subsequently, the text was revised and became the class text for Hadith 1 course offered in the BAIS Bachelor's of Arts in Islamic Studies at Preston University, Ajman. The Islamic Studies Department was established in the fall of 2002. The contents are a combination of material from various existing texts in English as well as translated materials from Arabic texts on the subject. The science of Hadith is a thoroughly developed field, leaving very little room for additional new work. Most of what has been added in this century has been its sphere of the use of modern technology to make hadith information more easily accessible. Also, a number of obscure texts have been edited and printed, and authentication of earlier works have been done. The goal of this text is to provide a detailed basic foundation for BA level students in the Islamic Studies Department. It builds on the introduction to the science of hadith found in the Islamic Fundamentals 2 in the first semester course, Dr. Abu Amina Bilal Phillips. That's the forward of the book. Okay, let's get started and let's deal with the overall purpose of the book. As the title says, Usul al-Hadith. It doesn't necessarily say what usul means, nor does it say what type of usul, because the word asl, the usul is plural of asl, has several meanings. We don't want to jump too forward in criticizing or critiquing the book, but that's just something to think about. So the title of the book is not that clear. The subtitle says the methodology of hadith evaluation. Inshallah. So the book is about evaluating hadith. Evaluating hadith, according to the main title of the book. How to evaluate hadith. Okay, so that's the overall understanding of the book. As we read in the context, it's pretty comprehensive and deals with several different aspects of hadith science, compiling them, recording them, criticizes them, so on and so forth. So that's the general concept of the book. The book is full of information, full of references, full of dates, full of names, full of many types of examples. He has Arabic text in the book. These are all highlighting points from the work and beneficial points of the work. So from the things that caught our interest in the book, first and foremost, as we said, is that it is comprehensive. Any book that you can find that's comprehensive is something that you want in your library. It may not be the main book that you read every day or you memorize. It may not be something that you read on your way to work or from work, whatever the case may be, but it's something that you need to have. You need to have big books and small books, encyclopedias, and you also need pamphlets and leaflets. So that's the benefit of the book. Another benefit is the bibliography. Very highly beneficial for you to read about more books, learn about more books, the dates, the prints, the authors. That's a plus that the author he gets. Another plus he gets is several examples, as we mentioned, abundant examples. And the more examples you have in a book, the easier it is to understand, and the clearer the definition and the concept that the author is trying to get across becomes. So that's a very good example. Another important highlighting point from the book is that the author avoids technical terms as much as he can. He doesn't use, like foreign alien language unless he has to. And that's something we find often. We find books given to general people with collegiate type of language, rather higher than collegiate English. And that's a problem, something that we don't want. Another highlighting point from the book is that the author mentioned the women scholars of Hadith, which is very important. And we spoke about this before in several episodes. The importance of explaining to women that Hadith is not just for men. It's not just for one sex or one class. It's for everyone, anyone who wants it. Anyone who has the necessary sacrifice and devotion and dedication to become a Hadith disciple. So that's a very good point from the book. Walillah alhamd, the author, he deals with several different doubts, several different ambiguities, misconceptions, misunderstandings. That's very excellent. Also, there's a few charts that he mentions here, a few lists. That's another highlighting point from the book. And as we said before, the book is very informative, very beneficial. Walillah alhamd is something that you're going to be able to pick up and take a lot from. His categorization of the different terms, translations of the terms, examples, names, dates. These are all beneficial points from the book. Walillahi alhamd. Okay? Khairan, inshallah subhanahu wa ta'ala. See, for example, on page 47, there's a chart that he mentions, which is similar to another chart that came from another book. He deals with the history. He deals with the different places, the geographical locations. And as we said before, is just the classification that he talked about. He spoke about so many different things, from compilation to women, from criticism to literature. So that's all beneficial points that the author gets, walillah alhamd, and it's full of knowledge in the book, walillah alhamd. As for critique of the book, or something that could be looked at as points of criticism, then we said first and foremost is the title of the book. The title of the book, in my humble opinion, isn't that clear. Usul al-Hadith. What does the word usul mean? We're speaking to English people. That's firstly. Secondly, the methodology of a Hadith evaluation. When we talk about how Hadith were compiled, the literature of Hadith, women scholars of Hadith, so on and so forth, that doesn't necessarily deal with evaluation. That doesn't necessarily deal with evaluating. So my humble opinion is that the title is a bit vague and a bit misleading. Just a bit. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. Another point of criticism is in the foreword. The author says, the science of Hadith is a thoroughly developed field, leaving very little room for additional new work. We don't agree with that. No doubt it's been thoroughly researched. Thousands of volumes and books have been printed and put together, and things have been lost, different manuscripts that deal with the science of Hadith. And it is a mature science. And it has, walillahi alhamd, been served greatly. But many people say that there's not too much left, there's not much to study. We don't agree with that. We don't agree with that. Rather, there are many things that are being discovered, being found out, as he mentioned himself. New books being edited and being printed. However, there are many conceptions and ideals that have been accepted that go through scrutiny. And they go through a scrupulous grinder, as you want to call. Okay, and meticulous, painstaking research and criticism for many past ideals and concepts that have not been thoroughly researched yet. There are many aspects, many fields, many sub-branches, many subgenres of Hadith science, of al-Jarh wa Ta'dil, of al-Ruwat, of Tadween, many things that need thorough research. So therefore, that point in the foreword, we do not necessarily agree with the author on that point. Another point of criticism, let's go back just a little bit. Another very beneficial point is that he gives you some hands-on techniques for researching some hadith, okay, in the different books, which is a very good point. However, somebody may say, if the book is in English and the techniques are explained in English, the books that he sends you to are in Arabic. So what's the point? What's the purpose of that? For example, author, he quotes, or he gives you different exercises to go back to the book called Taqrib wa Tahdhib. okay, which is a book of narrators of the Kutub al-Sitta. As you can see here, it's a very dense book, a very thick book. The book is in Arabic. So if you make examples of how to use this book and different exercises in Arabic, but you're speaking to English-speaking people, there may be some conflict. And one possibly may say, if a person can read Arabic and pick up the book, why does he need to read the book in English? And why does he need a beginner's basic exercise in English if he can understand the words, the grammar, and so on and so forth in Arabic? That is a point of pondering that needs to be made. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. That's relative. Everybody has their own opinion. It's better than nothing, of course. He's giving you some type of exercise. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. But it is something that needs to be looked into. There are many different issues here with regards to traditional concepts, issues that are not agreed upon, things in which he goes into extensively, but then he returns back to one basic opinion, different issues in which he keeps one opinion that need to be investigated extensively, and so on and so forth. These are all things that need to be pondered upon. Section 6, the author says criticism. He says, by hadith criticism is meant the science of validation of hadith, ilm al-jarh wa ta'dil, whereby hadiths are ruled to be reliable or invalid based on certain criteria. The effort to distinguish between narrations of the Prophet ﷺ was rooted in his warning, if anyone tells a lie about me, intentionally let him sure to take his place in the hellfire. Type. He says, this process began during the lifetime of the Prophet ﷺ himself. However, at this stage it meant no more than going to the Prophet and verifying something he has reported to have said. Now, we don't agree with that. That's not what criticism of hadith is. That is an integral part of hadith criticism, criticizing the chain, criticizing the narrators, yes. Al-Jarh wa Ta'dil, the science of Al-Jarh wa Ta'dil, Ilm al-Rijal, Ilm al-Ruwat, is an integral part of hadith criticism, but it is not all of the hadith criticism. Okay? And we said before is that we have two options here. Either we're going to keep things simple and easy for the beginner, or we're going to bring things in a scholastic, collegiate level. As for floating between both, that's not going to work. That's not going to work. So it'll confuse the beginner, and it's going to be rejected by the collegiate culture, the society of people who are collegiate, so on and so forth. It's not going to work. Khair, inshallah. Criticism of hadith is far grander, far more vast than just the isnad. Rather, from the most important aspects, and according to many hadith masters of old, the criticism of hadith begins with the metin. Okay? And some say with the isnad. Al-Muhim, we use both. There's no doubt about that. But that statement right there is extremely vague and a bit inaccurate. And Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala knows best. There are many different other points of benefit in the book and many other points of critique in the book. We'll take one quick quote before we stop. The author says on page 53, after further contributions by Qadhi Iyad al-Yahsubi, died 554 of the Hijrah, Abu Hafs al-Mayaniji, died 580 of the Hijrah, and others, came the most comprehensive treatment of the subject. Ulum al-Hadith by Abu Amr Uthman ibn Salah, died 643 of the Hijrah. It is commonly known as Muqaddimah ibn al-Salah, and was compiled while he taught at Dar al-Hadith of several cities in Syria. The text came to be the standard reference book for scholars and students of Hadith from that time until today. Many later works on the science were based on it or were abridgments of it. Among them is An-Nawawi's abridgment Al-Irshad and a summary of his abridgment Taqrib, as Suyuti wrote an outstanding commentary on the latter known as Tadrib al-Rawi. Ibn Kathir, died 774, also compiled an abridgment of Ibn Salah's work called Ikhtisar Ulum al-Hadith. Also did Badruddin ibn Jama'ah, died 733, in his work Al-Minhal. These books classified hadiths according to a number of considerations. They were analyzed according to the narrator, authority, companion, successor, etc., the isnad, the number of narrators, the narrating terminology, the nature of the narrated text, and the reliability of the narrators. The early scholars of hadith from the first 2 centuries generally classified hadiths into 2 broad categories: sahih, authentic, and da'if, inauthentic. Imam at-Tirmidhi was the first to distinguish the category of hasan, reliable, from that of da'if. There are many points that can be argued and debated on that passage that we just wrote, but that's very beneficial and knowing one of the most important books. The grade that we will give the author, well, alhamdulillah, we will give him 4 out of 5 quills. He did a very good job. It's a very beneficial book, something that can help you out. However, there's nothing that's perfect except for the book of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, as Imam Shafi'i rahimahullah ta'ala clearly stated, Aballahu an yatimma illa kitabuh. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala refuses for any book to be 101% perfect except for his own book. Walhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to allow this to be a beneficial service to the Sunnah. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.